is a many splendid thing. It's the April rose that only grows in the early spring. Love is nature's way of giving a reason to be living. The golden crown that makes a man a king. Once on a high and windy hill, in the morning mist, two lovers kissed, and the world stood still. Then your fingers touched my silent heart and taught it how to sing. Yes, true love's a many splendored thing.
For many people, true love is in fact nature's way of giving reasons to be living. Food and water are not sufficient to warm the heart, stimulate the mind, and nourish the human soul. The movie Love is a Many Splendid Thing, the origin of the song, illustrates the dramatic transformation of people who are given a chance to love and be loved. Victor Hugo's suggestions that to love another person is to see the face of God. It's another beautiful saying illustrates the value and power of love. And yet, there are infinity examples throughout history of people who have been denied the right to choose their object of their love. Family rivalries, religion, racism, snobbicism, classism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and xenophobia have too frequently interfered with the natural course of things.
We are the People's Zoom Readers Theater. As our primary mission is to combat prejudice and injustice through drama, we are happy to highlight progress that we have witnessed and even experienced in the area of love relationships and marriage. Tonight, during the month of June, long known for weddings and LGBTQ pride, it is our pleasure to take you on a very brief journey that includes songs, personal stories, and excerpts from plays and movies that illustrate some of the changes that have occurred.
To illustrate the heartbreaking consequences of true love denied, we are starting our journey with a play known to young and old, Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare's tragedy about two young innocent lovers who are forbidden to be together because of their feuding families. When we listen to the lyrics of the Romeo and Juliet's movie theme song, A Time for Us, we are vividly reminded of the disastrous consequences that result when these teenagers are deprived of their reason to be living.
A time for us, someday there'll be, when chains are torn by courage, born of a love that's free, a time when dreams so long denied can flourish. As we unveil the love we now must hide, a time for us at last to see a life worthwhile for you and me. And with our love, through tears and thorns, we will endure as we pass surely through every storm. A time for us, someday there'll be a new world, a world of shining hope for you and me.
Sadly, such a day of hope never materialized for Romeo and his Juliet. It wasn't until both died brokenhearted that their families realized the tragedy of their ways. In our next classic play, Fiddler on the Roof, religion creates obstacles for young love. The setting is a little Russian town in 1905, where we meet Tevye, a Jewish milkman whose life is governed by the traditions of his religion. Each time one of his 3 older daughters question the customs governing courtship and marriage, he is conflicted. He wants his daughters to be happy, but when their happiness requires him to turn his back on traditions that have guided every aspect of his life, he is troubled. The history of the matchmaker goes back to the Middle Ages. One of the longest traditions of matchmaking is in Jewish communities. So when Tevye's oldest daughter, Seidel, wants to choose her own husband rather than marry the matchmaker's choice, there is resistance.
Arranging a match for yourself? What are you, everything? The bridegroom, matchmaker, and guests in one? I suppose you'll perform the ceremony too?
Please don't shout, Reb Tevye. As for being my matchmaker, I know it's unusual.
Unusual? It's crazy.
Times are changing, Reb Tevye. The thing is, a year ago, Seidel and I gave each other a pledge that we would marry.
You gave each other a pledge?
Yes, Papa. We gave each other our pledge.
They gave each other a pledge? Unheard of. Absurd. You gave each other a pledge. Unthinkable. Where do you think you are? In Moscow? In Paris? Where do you think you are? America? What do you think you're doing? You're a stitcher. You're nothing. Who do you think you are? King Solomon? This isn't the way it's done. Not here. Not now. Some things I cannot allow. Tradition. Marriages must be arranged by the Papa. This should never be changed. One little time, you pull out a prop, and where does it stop? Where does it stop? Where does it stop? Do you still have something to say about my daughter? Doesn't anyone have to ask the father now?
I've wanted to ask you for some time, but first I want to save enough for my own sewing machine.
Stop talking nonsense. You're just a poor tailor.
That's true, but even a poor tailor is entitled to some happiness. I promise you, Reb Tevye, your daughter will not starve.
In this case, Tevye gives in. He's impressed with Muddle's maturation and his commitment to his daughter, Seidel. And so perhaps his next oldest daughter, Huddle, thinks she has a chance of getting her way when she decides not only to choose her own mate, Perchik, but accompany him when he leaves the little village.
I must leave here.
When?
Tomorrow morning.
I'm sorry to hear that, Perchik. We will miss you.
But I also have some good news.
Good.
You can congratulate me.
Congratulations. What for?
We are engaged.
Engaged?
Yes, Papa, we are engaged.
Oh, no, you're not. I know you like him, and he likes you. But you are going away, Perchik, and you, Huddle, are staying here. Have a nice trip, and I hope you'll be very happy, and my answer is still no.
Papa, you don't understand.
Understand. I understand. I gave my permission to Muddle and Seidel, so you feel you also have a right. I'm sorry, Perchik. I like you, but you're going away, so go in good health. And my answer is still no.
You don't understand, Papa.
You are not listening. I said no.
Reb Tevye, we are not asking for your permission, only for your blessing. We are going to get married.
You are not asking for my permission?
But we would like your blessing, Papa.
I can't believe my own ears. My blessing. For what? For going over my head? Impossible. At least with Seidel and Muddle, they asked me. They begged me. But now, if I like it or not, you'll marry him. What do you want from me? Go on, be wed, and uncover my head. But what about tradition? They're not even asking permission from the Papa. What's happening to the tradition? One little time, I pulled out a thread, and where has it led? Where has it led? A man tells me he's getting married. He doesn't ask me, he tells me. But first, he abandons you.
He is not abandoning me, Papa.
As soon as I can, I will send for her and marry her. I love her.
He loves her. Love. It's a new style. On the other hand, our old ways were once new, weren't they? On the other hand, they decided without parents, without a matchmaker. On the other hand, did Adam and Eve have a matchmaker? Oh, yes, they did. And it seems these two have the same matchmaker. They're going over my head. Unheard of. Absurd. For this, they want to be blessed. Unthinkable. I'll lock her up in her room. I couldn't. I should. But look at my daughter's eyes. She loves him. Tradition? Well, children, I've decided to give you my blessing and my permission.
Tabia clearly loves his daughter very much and is willing to bend his tradition for the sake of their happiness. But even he must have his limits. So what's happening when his third oldest daughter, Havila, approaches her father? Let's see.
Vietka and we've known each other for a long time.
Havila, I would be much happier if you would remain friends from a distance. You must not forget who you are and who that man is.
He has a name, Papa.
Of course. All creatures on earth have a name.
Vietka is not a creature, Papa. Vietka is a man.
Well, who says he isn't? It's just that he's a different kind of man. As the good book says, each shall seek his own kind. In other words, a bird may love a fish, but where would they build a home together?
The world is changing, Papa.
No. Some things do not change for us. Some things will never change.
We don't feel that way.
We?
Vietka and we want to be married.
What? Are you out of your mind? Don't you understand what that means, marrying outside the faith?
But Papa...
No, I said no. Never talk about it again. Never mention his name again. Never see him again. Do you understand me?
Yes, Papa. I understand you.
This time, Tavila does not change his mind, and interfaith marriage is something he cannot accept. When Olda, his wife, tells Tavia that the town priest married Hava and Vietka, he says,
Hava is dead to us. We'll forget her.
When Havila approaches her father after her marriage, hoping he will accept what is already a fact, we hear Tavila enter conflict.
Accept them? How can I accept them? Can I deny everything I believe in? On the other hand, can I deny my own daughter? On the other hand, how can I turn my back on my faith, my people? If I try to bend that far, I'll break. On the other hand, no, there is no other hand. No, Chava, no.
But Papa,
no.
One would think that much has changed since 1905, but in 1968, I learned differently. Here is my story. During the summer of 1968, I had a summer job working at a brokerage firm on Wall Street while I was a student at City College. The accounting firm was performing an audit of the brokerage. I met a few of the auditors when I delivered messages to them. The next thing I knew, I found myself in a conversation with one of them. Before long, we were dating. He was different from anyone I had ever known or met. First, he grew up in a staunch Catholic family. His mother was raised in a Catholic orphanage and attended Mass every day of her life. He attended parochial schools and would tell me stories of the strict nuns and his experiences as an altar boy. I grew up in a neighborhood that was predominantly Jewish. While my parents were not religious, they sent us to Hebrew school, and we celebrated Jewish holidays in a traditional way with both sets of grandparents. City College at that time consisted of primarily Jewish kids from the various New York boroughs. At 19 years old, I had dated only Jewish boys, and my friends were all Jewish. On the surface, my future husband, Connie, and I had little in common. But as we got to know each other, we quickly became great friends and soulmates. But how could this happen? Within months, we discussed marriage. We visited a priest and a rabbi. Both tried to talk us out of marrying. My mother's parents were livid. Connie took me to meet his father's brother, his namesake. He wanted his Uncle Connie's blessing since his dad had died a few years earlier. While I sat in a separate room with his aunt, his uncle told him he had to end the relationship. It seemed everywhere we looked, there was a roadblock. I could go on and on about the cruel comments expressed by others. Despite the negativity, we married 16 months after meeting. Our wedding ceremony was performed by a priest in a Catholic rectory with only our immediate families in attendance. I didn't want my parents to be subject to walking down the aisle of a church, and we couldn't find a rabbi who would marry us. After our intimate marriage ceremony, we had a big celebration with extended family and friends. Our son was born 10 months later. Although Connie was very spiritual, he agreed to raise his children as Jews. Thus, he was excommunicated by the Catholic Church. He never again received communion. He took his mother to Mass when she visited, and we would go as a family on Christmas and Easter. Our 3 children identified as Jews and were exposed to his religion. My parents came to love Connie as a son, and he grew very close to my sister and brother. However, we experienced hurtful comments and actions expressed to us due to our religious differences throughout our years together. One example that stands out is that of an aunt and uncle of Connie's who never came to any of our children's bar bat mitzvahs. They always had a good excuse, so we never gave it much thought. Years later, after they passed away, their daughter told us the truth. They didn't come because they would never accept our children being Jewish. Ironically, their granddaughter married a woman many years later. On a positive note, most of his family came around in time and was and loving to me. On February 23rd, 2000, after 30 years of marriage and at the age of 55, Connie passed away. Since my parents were alive, I had never arranged a funeral, let alone a Catholic funeral. My son and I went to our local church to meet with a priest. The priest was beyond kind and understanding. In his sermon, he talked about the man who had died as a wonderful husband and father who put his family above his religion, even though his religion was an important part of him. He said the most important thing in life is family. I wished Connie could have heard this in his lifetime, but I was glad my children were able to experience this priest's loving kindness as they mourned their father. I am glad that today, 50 years later, religious intermarriage is accepted within our culture. But I can assure you, this was not always the case. Interracial marriage has come a long way too. The 1943 musical play, South Pacific, reflected society's thinking about multiracial relationships. Two Americans are conflicted by society's norms when they are drawn to people with very different backgrounds. Nellie Forbush, a Navy nurse, falls in love with a French plantation owner, Emile Debec, but rejects his relationship when she learns that he fathered two mixed-race children. U.S. Marine Lieutenant Joe Cable falls in love with Liette, a young Tonkinese woman, but ultimately rejects her after thinking about the social consequences of marrying an Asian woman. When Emile questions Nellie about her rejection because the mother of his children is Polynesian, she says,
"It isn't as if I could give you a good reason. There is no reason. This is emotional. It's something that is born in me."
It is not. I don't believe this is born in you.
Then why do I feel the way I do? All I know is I can't help it.
When Emile tells Joe that he can't believe such a feeling is born in you, Joe, who rejected Layette for a similar reason, responds with this song.
It happens after you're born. You have got to be taught. To hate and fear, you have got to be taught. From year to year, it's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You have got to be carefully taught. You have got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade. You have got to be carefully taught. You have got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8. To hate all the people your relatives hate, you have got to be carefully taught.
Clearly, the Jets and the Sharks, two teenage street gangs of different ethnic backgrounds in West Side Story, a 1957 musical play, are also taught to hate their rivals. They live in a multiracial, blue-collar neighborhood in the Upper West Side of New York City. The fierce rivalry between these gangs, coupled with their distrust of people who are different, generate violence that destroys the deep romance between Tony and Maria, our modern-day Romeo and Juliet. In the song Somewhere, Maria and Tony dream about a time and place where their mutual love would be accepted.
There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air, wait for us somewhere.
There's a time for us someday, a time for us, time together with time to spare, time to learn, time to care.
Someday, somewhere, we'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving. Somewhere, somewhere. Hold my hand and we're halfway there.
Hold my hand and I'll take you there.
Somehow,
someday,
somewhere.
After Tony inadvertently kills Maria's brother Bernardo in a fight he tried to stop, Maria affirms the overwhelming power of love in the song I Have a Love.
I have a love, and it's all that I need, right or wrong, and he needs me too. I love him, we're one, there's nothing to be done, not a thing I can do, but hold him forever, be with him now, tomorrow, and all of my life. When love comes so strong, there is no right or wrong. Your love is your love.
As one can only imagine, hate born of prejudice destroys the future Maria and Tony dreamed of. Thus, with great relief, we have witnessed changes in attitudes toward mixed marriages. The 1967 movie Guess Who is Coming to Dinner was one of the first mainstream movies to reflect our society's growing acceptance of interracial marriage. Even in liberal homes, where racism didn't appear to exist, the question of an interracial marriage was not easily answered. When Joanna, as only child, comes home with John, a black man, and announces that they want to be married, both sets of parents are concerned about the problems that Joan and Joanna as an interracial couple will face. Initially, neither father, clearly perceived as the more practical of the parents, are in favor of such a marriage. But the final monologue delivered by Matt, who is Joanna's dad, is most remembered because for many demonstrates the change in attitude of parents who are more concerned about breaking up a loving couple than the problems that they will encounter.
In the final analysis, it doesn't matter a damn what we, the parents, think. The only thing that matters is what Joanna and John feel and how much they feel for each other. And it's half of what we felt. That's everything. As for you two and the problems you are going to have, they seem almost unimaginable. But you'll have no problem with me. And I think that when Christina and I and your mother have enough time to work on him, you'll have no problem with your father. But you do know, I'm sure you know, what you're up against. There'll be 100 million people right here in this country who'll be shocked and offended and appalled at the two of you. And the two of you will have to ride that one out. Maybe every day for the rest of your life. You can try to ignore those people, or you can feel sorry for them and for their prejudices and their bigotry and their blind hatred and stupid fears. But where necessary, you'll just have to cling tight to each other and say, screw all those people. Anybody could make a hell of a good case against you getting married. The arguments are so obvious that nobody has to make them. But you're two wonderful people who happen to fall in love and happen to have a pigmentation problem. And I think that now, no matter what kind of case some bastard could make against your getting married, there would be only one thing worse, and that would be knowing what you two are, knowing what you two have, and knowing what you two feel if you didn't get married.
The landmark Supreme Court Loving versus Virginia ruling that ended prohibitions on interracial marriage occurred weeks after the filming of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was completed. For that reason alone, this film was considered groundbreaking. But it wasn't until the 2016 movie Loving hit the movie theaters that a wider audience was enlightened about the courageous fight that Richard Loving, a white Virginia construction worker, and his wife, Mildred Jader, an African-American, waged to change the law that prohibited interracial marriage.
It took Richard and Mildred, who married in 1958, 9 years to win the right to be married in Virginia, the state where they lived. It should come as no surprise that they experienced humiliating arrests and jail sentences that involved felony charges for just being husband and wife. Though interracial marriage became legal in 1967, Alabama didn't repeal its ban until 2000.
Clearly, there have been changes in laws, attitudes, and behaviors when it comes to mixed marriages. Though Tavia's position is more likely to be limited to strictly Orthodox religious observers, there are still people who have concerns. Here is a typical conversation between a mother and daughter that could easily occur today when the subject is a relationship with a man with a different religion, race, or background.
Why did you start with Tom, knowing about the differences?
It was just for fun. I never thought we would get serious.
What about Paul? He seemed like such a nice man, smart, a good family, a great future ahead of him.
Everything you said is true. I can't disagree. The trouble is, I'm not attracted to Paul. I'm attracted to Tom.
But his religion is not ours. He's not even from our community.
I know. You made that very clear. In fact, you weren't your usual warm and friendly host when he was there for dinner.
I didn't mean to be unwelcoming. That is not who I am. It's just that I felt uncomfortable, disappointed. It's not easy to hide my emotions.
I'm so sorry that I'm disappointing you. I've always done my best to make you proud of me. Your approval has always been so important to me.
I know. I know you aren't doing this on purpose. I know you don't want to upset me or your dad.
Exactly. So please understand. I love Tom, really love him. This isn't just some silly infatuation that will soon go away. And just as important, I know that he really loves me and will do anything to make me happy. He supports my working, and I hope you believe me when I tell you he cares about you and Dad and our family, and he doesn't want to upset you.
I would be lying if I said that we aren't concerned.
Don't you want me to be happy?
Of course I do.
Then it's very simple. What is more important, our religion or me?
You know the answer to that, though I'm not so sure you would get such a simple answer from your grandparents or your uncles, but there is no doubt that you must come first.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So what can I say or do to make this better?
Will he convert?
Mom, I can't ask him to do that.
Why not?
How can I ask him to do that? Would that be fair to his family?
Do you know if it matters as much to his family as it does to yours?
And
if you are blessed with children, what then? What will their religion be?
I guess we'll teach them both religions and let them choose when they grow up.
As a follow-up to this conversation, Tom might offer to convert or he may not offer to convert. They could decide to raise their child in both religions, or at least celebrate the holidays representing each religion. They may or may not join a house of worship, such as a church, synagogue, or mosque. For people who are not very observant or have a very different way of looking at things, a different religion or nationality is not a deal breaker.
The story of my son's marriage reflects this different way of thinking. When Aaron told us that he wanted to marry a girl from India, he didn't think he would encounter resistance because he was always been the less traditional in his romantic relationships. His girlfriends rarely shared his religion. Would I have preferred that the woman he told us he wanted to marry observed our religion? I think the answer is obvious. And yet, as soon as we met Nina, we fell in love with her too, and knew this is the woman who will make our son happy. It couldn't matter that the wedding Aaron would have with Nina would be remarkably different from the one we had envisioned for him when he was growing up. The fact is, Aaron's 3-day Hindu wedding, which was meant to unite the two families, was an experience right out of a storybook. It was a leap into the amazing world that was totally new for our family, but one that we all embraced. For the benefit of Nina's family, Aaron and Nina created the appearance of an arranged marriage, but they were actually married before the traditional wedding. But that is where the fantasy ended. Every ceremony the wedding couple and their family members participated in was authentic in every way. You can see from these memorable photos some of the traditions that we observed. The most well-known is the Mendi ceremony, which is the painting of the bride's hands and feet in henna design. The Haldi ceremony, in which loved ones paint the couple on the morning the day before their wedding with the paste of rich yellow turmeric, was particularly fascinating. This ceremony signifies beauty, fertility, and purity, and is supposed to ward off evil. The fact that all the members of the wedding party were attired in the traditional Hindu wedding garb, including the bindi dot on our foreheads, contributed to the feeling of inclusiveness. I felt regal after my daughter-in-law's family friend helped dress us all for the main event. Quite honestly, we were so fascinated by our involvement in every ritual that we really didn't feel uncomfortable. The biggest surprise, one that no prior description could have prepared my husband and me for, was the sight of our son arriving to the wedding on a horse, another Indian groom tradition. Though there was inclusion of a Jewish blessing given by my daughter, Aaron's sister, a Reformed Jewish rabbi, it was clearly a Hindu wedding. And if any of the guests who were invited to Aaron's wedding objected to anything that they saw or heard, the festive music and dancing drowned it out. We were not so naive as to believe that all parents would have taken this liberal position as we did. But for us, love, a purpose for living, had to win out. Neither my son nor his wife converted. They are both living the life of Buddhists. They meditate and they go for silent 10-day retreats. They have decided not to have children since they are both career-oriented. This is not my life, but it is theirs. As long as they are happy, healthy, and fulfilled, I am happy too.
Intermarriage is increasingly common today. Among newlyweds in 2019, roughly 1 in 5 were intermarried. Probably one of the most high-profile, interracial, and interfaith marriages is of Vice President Kamala Harris and her husband Doug Emhoff, second gentleman. Vice President Harris is Christian. Her father is Jamaican and her mother is Indian. Her husband Doug is a white Ashkenazi Jew. Judging from all we have seen of this very public couple, we have come a long way, and our society is so much more accepting of blended families.
When the subject is same-sex couple, most progress has occurred in the last 10 years. Unfortunately, the journey has been a very long and dangerous one. The song We Kiss in the Shadow from PZRT and Hamilton Blake, The King and I, reminds us of the social limitations that have obsessed the LGBTQ community for centuries.
We kiss in a shadow, we hide from the moon. Our meetings are few and over too soon. We speak in a whisper, afraid to be heard. When people are near, we speak not a word. Alone in our secret together, we sigh for one smiling day to be free, to kiss in the sunlight and say to the sky, behold, believe what you see. Behold how my lover loves me.
Rock Hudson, Cary Grant, Randolph Scott, James Dean, Joanne Crawford, Tyrone Power, Marlon Brando, Greta Garbo, Cesar Romero, Marlena Dietrich, Elizabeth Scott, Leonard Bernstein, Tony Perkins, Paul Lynde, Peter Allen, and many others who were famous during the golden age of Hollywood had to kiss their lovers in a shadow. In fact, there were a great deal of people in Hollywood, as well as in other less public industries, who had to keep their love life a secret. Sadly, the public lives of numerous well-known movie and television celebrities were as much of a fantasy as the parts they played on screen. In order for actors and actresses to pursue a career, especially if they were famous for their appearance or sex appeal, they had to keep their sexuality private. One way was to engage in a lavender marriage, a mixed marriage of convenience designed to conceal socially stigmatized sexual orientation of one or both partners.
How ironic that so many people who have provided the world with the most spectacular odes to romance, whether it be a movie or song, couldn't freely enjoy their own love life. Such is the story of one of the most well-known romantic pop ballad singers of the 1960s and 70s, Johnny Mathis. Not everybody has a talent for words, music, or dancing, but when one of Johnny Mathis's songs was playing, no matter who your date was, the night was filled with passion. People with two left feet moved with grace on the dance floor, and to nobody's surprise, they still do when one of his 73 songs is playing, including the 12th of Never.
You ask how much I love you. Must I explain? I need you, oh my darling, like roses need rain. You ask how long I'll love you, I'll tell you true. Until the 12th of never, I'll still be loving you. Hold me close, never let me go. Hold me close, melt my heart like April snow. I'll love you till the bluebells forget to bloom. I'll love you till the clover has lost its perfume. I'll love you till the pearls run out of rhyme. Poets run out of rhyme until the 12th of never. And that's a long, long time until the 12th of never. And that's a long, long time.
It was never right that Johnny Mathis, the man with the velvet voice, who captivated the music world with an abundance of award-worthy love songs, couldn't publicly share his own love inspiration because he was gay. While many of us were dancing and making love to the sensual ballads, without fear, Johnny Mathis behaved as though his only mission in life was to ignite our passion. Fans all often wondered how a man who seemed to emphasize love and romance could live a celibate life. Well, he didn't, thank goodness. We just didn't know it. We couldn't know because in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and perhaps longer in our society, his gay existence could have destroyed his career and worse. It wasn't until 1982 that Johnny Mathis came out. And when he did, he received death threats. The fact that he is also Black didn't help his situation.
Fortunately, in 2003, the Recording Academy presented Johnny Mathis with a Grammy Award for Lifetime Achievement, 6 decades that included 43 hit singles and sent 74 titles onto Billboard 200. The Academy said this recognition was for an artist who has long sung of romance, but has also supported civil rights and gay rights. Perhaps it is no coincidence that Johnny Mathis, who loved in the shadow for many years, was rewarded the same year, June 2003, that the United States Supreme Court struck down the homosexual conduct law, which decriminalized same-sex sexual conduct throughout the country.
As a result of this progress, many celebrities you may recognize have been acknowledging their sexuality with pride. Miley Cyrus, Elliot Page, Ellen DeGeneres, Elton John, Tim Cook, Drew Barrymore, Kristen Stewart, Richard Pryor, Lee Daniels, Ben Platt, Sam Smith, Ariana Grande, Billy Eichner, Kate McKinnon, Gillian Anderson, Lady Gaga, Angelina Jolie, Janelle Monáe, and Jim Parsons. And for LGBTQ members waiting to legally do what their heterosexual siblings, friends, colleagues, and others could without a second thought, get married. The legalization of same-sex marriage in 2004 in Massachusetts was a sign that justice was finally in their reach. It certainly helped when Obama became the first sitting U.S. president to publicly support the freedom for LGBTQ couples to marry. June 24th, 2011 was the day New Yorkers could legally marry in their state.
For those of us in Pennsylvania, May 20th, 2014 was our day for celebration. So what was the big problem? We just couldn't believe it. Everyone was so happy for us. I mean, strangers we never met. Pennsylvania finally passed the same-sex marriage law in May of 2014. Dan and I had been together for 18 years by then. The day had finally come to get our marriage license and plan our special wedding. At first, we thought, the hell with you, Pennsylvania. We've been happy for the past 18 years, and now you tell us we can marry? Well, thanks, but no thanks. How dare you? But giving it more thought, not that much more, we realized the validation of our relationship, our right to love and be recognized, was the icing on the cake. We drove up to our county courthouse. We arrived just at the noon hour, so knowing the building was closed for lunch, we decided to go have lunch ourselves. Our waitress must have seen the joy in both of us as she said, "You two look so happy." We explained we came into town to get our marriage license. She was so genuinely thrilled for us. "Congratulations," she said. "Dessert is on me." Wow, we thought. How sweet of her. Our next stop was the county courthouse. A stern-looking security guard was at the door. Again, as if she sensed our joy, she said, "I bet I know why you two are here." We explained, and with a huge smile, she insisted on personally escorting us to the third floor to the licensing department. Wow. In the department, we again were very pleasantly greeted by an older woman. She gave us a pleasant hello and asked how she could help us. Again, we explained why we were there, and she warmly gestured for us to follow her to her cubicle. As natural as anyone could be, she congratulated us, asked how long we had been together, and before we knew it, our papers were being processed. As we left that office, we even noticed trays of rainbow cookies out on the counter. Before we got to the car, and both of us being ice cream lovers, especially Dan, we stopped in a cute little sweet shop for a couple of sundaes. The person behind the counter, again, was so happy to hear our news of the day. Extra scoops. As we sat on the front porch of the sweet shop enjoying our treats, I got down on one knee and asked Dan to marry me. We laughed and reflected on the amazing experience we had with everyone that day. To be honest, we began the day quite nervous and anxious. What will people think? Will they be reluctant? Will they be indifferent? Will they even be rude? We never imagined that everyone would have been so warm and so wonderful and happy about us. So what was the big problem all these years? Our wedding was June 1st, 2014. We contacted a local mayor who was thrilled to officiate our vows. We had a small ceremony in our backyard. Only family and very close friends were there, as we would plan a reception later in the fall. The mayor came to our house early to meet with me and Dan and share some special poetry he thought we'd perhaps like in the wedding. How special. My brother played guitar. My niece sang a song she even picked out for us. Our champagne brunch reception was held that October 5th at our local country club. We had 110 people there. The brunch buffet, the music, the dancing, the wonderful attentive service, and yes, the cake. Oh, that cake was beautiful. Perhaps I'm biased, but the joy in that ballroom was about to burst the walls. So many people in our lives from various places, religions, ages, etc. all shared the same joy and happiness Dan and I were feeling that day. Even the event planner and the chef at the country club stuck around to celebrate with us. Dan and I were showered with love. We couldn't have felt more special, luckier, and more joyous. That night, as we lie in bed, we thought, so what was the big problem?
Because my son and his fiancée were already preparing for the same-sex wedding at a hotel in Philadelphia on August 31st, they were so relieved when they no longer had to go to New York to get officially married before their special day. As for me, a proud parent of a gay son, the legalization of same-sex marriage in our state was a long-awaited blessing. To ensure all guests would fully appreciate the significance of the wedding Scott and David meticulously planned together, I asked to speak during their ceremony. The following is a portion of the speech I gave at their wedding. When you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dreams, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. Well, we all know it's not so simple, but sometimes it happens. The presence of you sitting here tonight to celebrate the marriage of Scott and David is proof that some dreams do come true. Quite honestly, I didn't know for sure that such a day would come. I knew the dream, but I didn't know the path to fulfillment. For many years, I wondered if a beautiful night like this was in the stars for my son, who had spent so much of his life creating beautiful nights, days, and all kinds of happy occasions for his family and friends. So often during his adolescence, I wondered what happened to my blissfully happy son who sang on a stage of a hotel and danced in its lobby. What could be sapping his infectious smile and carefree spirit when he was doing extremely well in school and he was so loved by his family? Eventually, I came to realize that the puritanical constraints of our society that must have made my son question himself and his future happiness was the culprit. Knowing the world is not a friendly place for those who love a little differently, and knowing that my son wanted nothing more than to be a source of pride and joy for our family, I realized the heavy burden he was carrying. Thus, I was plagued with questions I could barely utter aloud. Would my son ever know the pleasure of loving and being loved openly? Would he ever have a chance to find a person deserving of his love and kindness, wit and humor? And if he did, would I even know about it? And if he should be so lucky to find a worthy partner, would they ever know the elation of acceptance and celebration that their siblings enjoyed? The truth is, until recently, the idea of a recognized relationship, much less a traditional wedding like this, seems so remote. For years, I prayed for answers. And in 2012, when I learned about David, they started coming. Tonight, with the help of everybody here, we are making their commitment to each other official. Each of you, Whether you traveled a few miles or a few thousand to witness and celebrate their marriage, you are genuinely valued. And Scott and David, may you always feel the love and appreciation that surrounds you today. Use it as a shield against any clouds of doubt and ignorance you may encounter. May you never let anything larger than a slice of Magnolia's chocolate cake come between you. Be healthy, be happy, be good to each other, be strong for each other, and confidently live the life that fulfills you and makes you smile. You proved that with patience and perseverance and a lot of love, you have the power to make your dreams come true. And when you did that, you made my dream come true too.
It's so nice.
On June 26, 2015, when the Supreme Court ruled that no state could ban same-sex marriage, a dream came true to all members of LGBTQ community in the United States. This was a gift that countless gay couples couldn't believe and finally arrived. No more feeling like second-class citizens. No more lavender marriages or trips to other cities for legally sanctioned marriages.
It's ironic that how, when just about any kind of relationship, interfaith, interracial, same-sex, can be legally certified, there is a noticeable increase in the number of people who are either waiting longer to tie the knot or are foregoing marriage altogether. The wonderful thing is this: more and more people are able to enjoy nature's way of giving a reason to be living without penalty, condemnation, fear, or guilt. In this month of weddings and gay pride, we wish each of you the blessing of your chosen love. Now you'll hear a few love songs in different languages. शाम सवेरे तेरी यादें आती है, आके दिल को मेरे यूं तड़पाती है। ओ सनम मोहब्बत की कसम। समझे ज़माना कि दिल है खिलौना, जाना है अब क्या दिल का लगाना, नजरों से अब ना हमको गिराना, मर भी गए तो भूल न जाना। आँखों में बसी हो पर दूर हो कहीं, दिल के करीब हो ये मुझको है यकीन। ओ सनम तेरे प्यार की कसम।
Para amarte, necesito una razón y es difícil creer que no exista una más que este amor. Sobra tanto dentro de este corazón que a pesar de que dicen que los años son sabios, todavía se siente el dolor, porque todo el tiempo que pasé junto a ti dejó tejido su hilo dentro de mí y aprendí a quitarle al tiempo los segundos. Tú me hiciste ver el cielo aún más profundo. Junto a ti creo que aumenté más de 3 kilos con tus tantos dulces besos repartidos.
Từ ánh dương và mây xanh đến đây xa tan giá lạnh ở tận sâu trong trái tim này. Anh tự ly cà phê sớm mai cho ngày nhẹ trôi mỗi khi em nhắm môi, một nụ hôn khi ta trao về nhau một đời mãi không phai.
O Shama Be'are Yehuda Uve Husot Yerushalayim Kol Sasam Ve'Kol Simcha Kol Chatan Ve'Kol Kala Kol Sasam Ve'Kol Simcha Kol Chatan Ve'Kol Kala. It will yet be heard in the cities of Judah and in the parks of Jerusalem, the sound of joy and the sound of gladness, voice of the groom and voice of the bride.
轻轻的一个吻，已经打动我的心，深深的一段情，叫我思念到如今。你问我爱你有多深，我爱你有几分？你去想一想，你去看一看，月亮代表我的心。
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me.
Well, we thank each of you for joining us tonight. And now we invite you, the members of our audience, to share your thoughts on the progress of love relationships and tell us your stories.